Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We're going to do a podcast about something that I talk about all the time. I get a ton of emails about people who are rinsing their milk kefir grains in water. And here's the deal. You should never, ever, ever do this. It damages the kefir grain. It rinses off the protective bacteria that makes them thrive. And so many times they either die or stop reducing, or they just don't make kefir very well at all after they rinse them, because it messes with them. And there's a lot of people that are well-meaning out there telling people to do this, and I don't know why they do that. You can do it with water, kefir crystals, but not milk kefir grains. It's very different. There's so many bacteria in milk kefir. There's 50 plus, and there's only 14 or 15 in water kefir. So it's a very different matrix structure of bacteria and yeast. Now, sometimes if you've only done it like once or twice, the kefir grains will survive and they'll be okay and they'll bounce back. But it really slows them down, gets rid of some of the beneficial bacteria and damages them. And it gives me huge amounts of anxiety when people do this. So many people write me emails I get hundreds of emails every day. And so many people write to me about different things. And the coating of milk around the kefir grains protects them and makes them strong. So think of it this way. It's like walking around outside in a snowstorm being naked, because you have nothing to protect you. And that's what these bacteria on the kefir grains do. It's a coating so they can reproduce themselves and protect themselves. It's a combination of bacteria and good yeast. They're both in there. And there's 50 plus. And rinsing them washes all of that away. And it just really harms them. So here's the deal. If you need to rinse them, if they're like some people, when they make non-dairy kefir and they use the actual seeds and the nuts, they blend like for instance, they'll blend up almond milk kefir and they'll use the nuts in the thing instead of removing the nut seeds, the hulls. They actually put it in because it makes thicker kefir that way. Sometimes the kefir grains get clumped in there, so it's hard to get them out. So if you need to rinse them in whatever you're using, the milk you're using. Do not rinse them in water. And you really, honestly, you don't need to rinse them at all. But if you do want to, rinse them in fresh milk or almond milk or whatever you're using. Now, you can also give them a prebiotic like Prebio Plus, which feeds them and makes them stronger. So it's basically food for bacteria that makes it grow and multiply. And this powder will also help you make your kefir more creamy, but you only need like a pinch of it. You don't need for a quart, you need just a pinch of Prebio Plus. And if it's separating a lot, you can use a little bit more, but like an eighth of a teaspoon, a fourth of a teaspoon is plenty. You can add more if you want, but it gives it so much food that it takes it longer to ferment. And it's just best to give it a little bit, see how it does. And you can give it more later on if you want to. But I don't give it a whole lot. Like for a whole gallon, I'll use a scoop of prebio for kefir, milk kefir. So it's very, very strong. It has 3 prebiotics in it, but it does help make your milk kefir creamy if you're struggling with that. Okay, so trying not to shout about this because it's very upsetting to me. I understand people don't understand it, and a lot of people listen to it, a lot of other people. But here's the deal. I'm very protective of these microorganisms, these little kefir grains, because I'm trying to get them to stay around and survive, because scientists can't reproduce these guys. And I love that about kefir grains. They've tried to, but they can't do it. They've been around. They even found in Turkish scrolls backdating to the time of Abraham, they had things in these scrolls in Turkey about kefir grains. So they've been around a really, really long time. And I want to help them stay around and thrive. So this is, we all need help to live and thrive. And I'm a protector of them just because they've changed my life so much. Kefir grains have been, 21 years of having kefir every day has dramatically changed me. And I'm just so used to it now that I'm shocked when people don't feel good, because these foods really changed the course and direction of my life. They made me feel so much better. I just became a different person when I started consuming kefir. So I want those kefir grains to stay around. The people have labeled me the kefir policeman. I'm okay with that. You can call me that because somebody's got to do it. And there's a lot of information out there that's not correct. And they've changed my life so much. I will go to great lengths to protect them. So resist the temptation to rinse them in water. And you can tell everybody that Donna said so because I'll sleep so much better at night. It tortures me when people write me and tell me they've rinsed their kefir grains in water. And it always hurts them. And it hurts me when you guys do that. So, and I know you don't know it, but I'm trying to shout as loud as I can to tell people not to do that. Here's the deal. I've been doing this 21 years. So, if anybody was going to screw it up and mess it up, it would be me. And for some reason, I've never rinsed mine. And the other thing that I never did, and I don't even know why I did this, was I always use a lid on my kefir and not a cloth and rubber band. And a lot of people tell you to use cloth and rubber band. I can't tell you how many emails we get from people who, when they use a cloth and rubber band, get like a yeast on their kefir grains, like a pink yeast. And it's not harmful, but it's not great because it changes the flavor of the kefir. And it creates a dominance of yeast instead of the good bacteria in kefir, and you don't want that. So don't use a cloth and rubber band. I don't care where you heard it from. Just don't do it because you could get problems, and then you're going to write me an email, and I'm going to have to tell you not to do it. So just don't do it. Just put a lid on it. I like to use a plastic lid, but you can use any kind of lid. Just make sure you use a lid and not a cloth and rubber band, because cross-contamination from other cultured foods or even from other foods and other substances in your air, in your kitchen, can change the taste and the color of your kefir. And it doesn't happen if you use a lid. You don't want that strong yeasty taste in your kefir. And that happens when you get too many good yeast in there. So, and it's not bad, it's harmless, but it doesn't taste great. So the best method is to use a canning jar. The plastic lid, I've done this for many, 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 many years. And I have never had the problems that people have when they use a cloth and rubber band. Okay, that's another thing that I like to tell people, but I've got another thing I want to talk to you about. You can use a stainless steel strainer to strain your kefir. Metals can react with cultured foods because it can break the metal down, but stainless steel is non-corrosive. So when it comes to kefir, using a stainless steel strainer and spoon is actually okay. And I have also done this for 20 some years. And it's just, people panic because people say, never use metal. Well, it's not stainless steel is a little bit different than other metals. So it doesn't break down like the other metals do. So it's fine. Metal canning lids are fine too, as long as the kefir is in constant contact with them, because it will break down the metal in a lid that's, just a canning lid. So I like to use the plastic. It'll break it down and make it start rusting. So you can use it as long as it's not touching the kefir. Because kefir breaks down things. It detoxifies you. It breaks down or detoxifies and kills any harmful pathogens in the kefir, the milk, or whatever. If there's something in there, it goes after it, kills it, because it dominates. The good bacteria dominate, and they control that. Well, they do that in you too. So they break down things that are harmful. All fermented foods do that. And so you want, it's best to use plastic again, but if you want to have a metal in, you don't have anything else, just keep the kefir away from it and you'll be fine. Okay, here's another tip. Second ferment your kefir if you want more probiotics. It makes it taste better. Nothing makes kefir taste better than adding a small slice of fruit to your kefir. After your kefir's done, after you make the first ferment, which takes 24 hours, if you take your kefir grains out and then you add just a small piece of fruit like a strawberry, I like a 3 or 4 inch piece of lemon peel or orange peel, and then you add it in there for an hour. It increases the B vitamins, especially folic acid, and it mellows out that tart and sour taste. This is all accomplished by adding the fruit, which is a prebiotic for those hungry microbes in kefir. And they gobble up the sugars in the fruit and they make more probiotics for you from that. So don't let it ferment too long because it'll start to separate into whey and curds, which isn't bad. But I just like it better when you don't over ferment it. So I just do it for an hour on the counter and then I place it in the fridge and I leave the fruit peel in it in the fridge. And then you can add to that jar. If you make more kefir, you can put more milk kefir in that jar and let it just ferment in the fridge. And it'll give it food. It'll just slowly ferment in the fridge. And it will make your kefir taste much less sour. It makes it taste so much better. It gets away that tart taste and kind of mellows it out. And you'll really like it. Okay, here's another tip. Don't ferment too long. So many people think that letting your culture ferment longer is better, but it's not true. Kefir is best when it's done fermenting for 24 hours or when it's sour and tart and slightly thickened. A lot of people, and they hear this from other people too, they say let it go 48 hours or longer, but that diminishes the probiotics because the bacteria in the kefir runs out of food and then they start to die. And then it gets really sour tasting. The only time this is an exception is when you're second fermenting your kefir. And that's what we just talked about by placing a little bit of fruit in it. The time that it takes to ferment your kefir is very much an individual thing depending on the temperature in your home and how much milk you're using and how many grains you're using. And 24 hours is just a guideline. But if it tastes sour and tart and the milk has formed a thicker curd, then it's done. And I don't care if that's 18 hours. I don't care if it's 20 hours. That's when it's done. So you're going to have to depend on your home. Roughly, it likes between 68 and 75 degrees. That's what kefir likes. The warmer it goes, the faster it ferments. So it doesn't like hot temperatures. It throws a fit. It does not like being above 80 degrees. It hates it. So it ferments very, very fast. And then the yeast start to dominate over the bacteria, which isn't bad because there's good yeast in kefir too. But then they give it a really sharp, twangy taste. So I have a whole blog on how to make summer kefir if your house is hot. And you can put it in a cooler. You can put an ice pack in there, just a little one. You don't want to freeze it because you want it to ferment. But that will slow everything down and allow it to ferment more properly and not get so strong tasting. So, if it tastes sour and tart, it has a thicker curd, then it's done. So you can just take the grains out and put it in the fridge. Okay, another tip. Kefir grains can change in size. And this happens a lot when the temperatures fluctuate. Summertime, they change. Winter, they change. I love winter kefir. It's my favorite because it's creamier. But people think that the big, plump kefir grains are better. And I have pictures of them on my site because I have so many kefir grains. It's ridiculous. But the big, fat, chunky kefir grains are not better than the tiny, itty-bitty ones. The tiny ones are often the new grains that have broken off from the big grains. And they're very, very strong. And they start to grow and multiply very fast. And they're really actually stronger than the big, fat, chunky ones. So they just are breaking off and they're brand new. They're newborn kefir grains. So they're not bad. They're actually better. So, and I have seen kefir grains turn into all kinds of crazy things. They've gone into strings. I've seen them turn into sheets of kefir, like big sheets. And I even had one lady that said she had crop circles in her kefir. She had all these like little rings. They kept making rings all the time in her kefir. And these changes in kefir grains are known as kefirin. And it's a gel-forming soluble polysaccharide. And it happens most often when they change size and shapes in the summer and fall, or if you're trying new milk. They still sour and make kefir great and turn into that wonderful drink that everybody loves, kind of like a pourable yogurt. But if they change shapes and sizes, it's probably because something's changed in your process of making kefir, or be the temperature of the milk. So I have lots of FAQs about kefir. Kefir is just a living food. It can change in taste. It can change in temperatures. It adjusts to the changing temperatures and fermentation times. I had somebody write me this morning. I had 2 people this week tell me that kefir got slimy. That's because the good yeast are starting to dominate, so they need more milk because they're getting too warm. So they need to give them more milk and feed them more, make sure they feed them every day on the counter. Because if they're in the fridge a lot, they really don't like that. They don't like staying in the fridge very much. And they can run out of food in there and eat themselves. And I've had many people tell me, I've had that happen. I think my daughter did, where it dissolved her grains. They ate themselves. So you don't want to keep them in there for very long. You want to give them fresh food all the time, but they like being at room temperature. I want you to make good kefir. I have a huge FAQ page, and I'll put that in the link description below. If anybody knows what kefir can do, it is me. Had a love affair with this stuff for 21 years, and it's still going strong. I still have it every day. It's a fantastic drink. I could tell I'm different from other people. I can tell, and it's because of the species in my gut, the things that happen, the way that I feel, the way that I'm aging, the way that I'm not aging, let's put it that way, but the way that everything is better because I have it, because I've tried going off of it. It doesn't go very well for me. But it creates such diversity in the gut. It creates lower inflammation. It has 19 anti-inflammatory properties in it that is so powerful that you'll notice the difference when you start to have it. So I'm making this blog to tell you that don't rinse your kefir grains, but here's something else I want to tell you. Your home and my home are unique in difference. And the house that, where you live has the bacteria that you carry around. It's infused everywhere in your home. Because you and I are clouds of trillions of microbes, and you take them with you. You're a cloud of bacteria. You take it everywhere. It's crazy to think about, but they started using a forensic work team to determine who was in the room of the scene of a crime by testing the bacteria. And they could tell who had been there. And because of that, species of bacteria would leave the room, and they could tell who has been there and who wasn't. So you're a powerful influence on those around you. My kitchen is full of good bacteria because I've been doing this for so crazy long that bacteria kind of obeys me. It kind of does what I want. Every once in a while it doesn't, though. I take that back. Sometimes they have a mind of their own. But because there's so much infused in everything, my family has no choice. But they get my bacteria. They can't help it. It's everywhere. And we are doing that to each other everywhere we go. So the more you make cultured foods, the better your ferments will be, because you're infusing your home with these powerful bacteria. And your home, it's an expression of you, and so are your cultured foods. They will change with the temperature and how often you use them, how often you eat them. They love to ferment. It's their job. They will do it. You could put them in a jar and you walk away and they do their job. And they put vitamins and minerals that weren't in there, but to begin with, you're going to get more vitamin C. Milk doesn't have vitamin C if it's pasteurized. Raw milk does, but regular milk doesn't. But once you make it into kefir, guess what? It has vitamin C, it has more B vitamins, and they kind of skyrocket, but that's what fermentation does. But it does that in you too. That's what your body's designed to do, is to create more vitamins and minerals to be absorbed for you so you get more nutrients. And that's fermentation is a beautiful representation of that. They'll perform better the more often that you use them. And the same thing inside of you. It gets better and better the more you pay attention to how you're eating, how you're living, and the emotions that you feel. And the thing is, everybody that talks about them talks about antibacteria by killing things and antibacterial soaps and all those things. But we mostly are good bacteria, 99%. That's mostly what we are. We're not harmful bacteria. We're good. And the more you feed that, the more you recognize that, the more you believe in that, and the more you eat these foods, the more you'll be that way. And then without anybody knowing, you will be walking around making the world a better place just because you made yourself better. So I love these kefir grains. They have changed my life dramatically and still continue to do so. I learned more about them. I thought I knew a lot. I thought I was pretty smart, but I don't know diddly squat about kefir and the microbes and the things that they do compared to what I used to know. And I just learn all the time the things they can do. And it is miraculous to me that something as simple as a combination of bacteria and yeast sit in a jar, transform my food, take the sugars out by eating all the lactose in the milk, because kefir is 99.9% lactose free, infuse it with probiotics, increase the vitamins and minerals in it, make it basically a pre-digested food that I can consume, and lowers my inflammation in my body, helps me to keep my blood sugar stable. Blood pressure is the main reason I started drinking kefir, because I noticed such a dramatic difference in my blood pressure. And it's just food. And it's inexpensive to make. I can do it. I've had the same kefir grains for 21 years. I mean, they reproduce and grow and double every week. And so it's an inexpensive thing. It's sustainable. And they've been around for millions of years. And guys, I love them. So don't rinse them. It upsets me so much. My staff doesn't let me see some of the emails because I get really upset about it when people throw them away because they think there's something wrong, which 9 times out of 10 is not true, or they rinse them. So anyway, try not to be too emotional about it, but it's true. It drives me crazy and I don't sleep well when everybody tells me that. So don't rinse them. Don't put a cloth and rubber band on them. Put a lid on them. Don't over ferment them. Second ferment them, which is, I know, kind of a contradictory in terms, but you only do it for an hour and you give it more food. Those are some of the most important things that you can do to make sure you have fabulous kefir grains. And guys, here's the deal. Just try it. Just, the stuff at the stores, I'm a little horrified. I'm trying not to write a blog about this because I don't want to push against everybody else, but I'm looking at the kefir at the stores. They've taken out all the species in there that were originally in there and changed them to something else that's a more popular species. And I'm like, wait a minute, those aren't in kefir. So I don't even know if the kefir at stores is kefir anymore because it sure doesn't look like it because they've changed it. And those aren't naturally occurring. All I know is the kefir that I have, it works. The kefir grains and the easy kefir that I sell that's made from kefir grains, it works for me. So people are changing it, trying to make different species in there. They're a little pasteurizing them because the kefir in the stores doesn't keep getting sour, and it should if it was living. So I think it's not. And so it's, I don't know what they're doing anymore. They scare me. So anyway, make your own kefir. You guys, it literally takes 5 minutes. Here's the deal. If you don't want to start with kefir grains, start with easy kefir. It's made from flash frozen kefir grains, so you get all the benefits. It's a powder mix, and it will make you gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons of kefir. And all you do is put milk in a jar, and I don't care what kind of milk, it could be non-dairy milk, throw the powder in, screw a lid on it, let it sit for 24 hours, and the next day you have kefir. And then you could take a portion of that jar and make another jar. And you take a portion of the next jar and make another jar. You like 1/4 of a cup. Add that to a jar, put milk in it. It's just like literally 5 minutes. And I've been doing it for forever. I love it. So don't hurt your kefir grains. It upsets me. So, and please drink kefir. It's life-changing. It is one of the most life-changing things. I think it is the most life-changing thing I have ever done. And we're going 21 years strong. I feel like $1 million. And I thank the microbes that keep me well every day because of that. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week and take care of your kefir grains. And you can tell everybody, Donna says don't rinse them. Have a good one.